Perfectly excellent.
I wonder. I want to make you say, all right, forget it. I was going to see how long you would hold that pose, but I digress. Good evening and hello in internet land to the party people out there. How's it going tonight? You're all looking lovely. You as well, Tim, with your chant t-shirt. I can't look at your shirt and not hear it, which I guess that's what you're going for with that. Like,
yeah, I had to explain at work today what this even was because for those who are unaware, for some reason
please.
in like 1993, 1994, Gregorian chant music got supremely popular.
Yeah, like top radio was playing it.
Yeah, they were like the chant record ended up being the #3 album on Billboard. They sold 2 million copies. And I thought it was the funniest thing in the world when I was in high school. Yeah, I thought it was hysterical. And at the Rockaway Mall, they were selling this shirt in like one of the t-shirt shops. And I had to get it just because I thought it was stupid and funny. And I've had this shirt for 32 years. And I still love it.
Was that the story you had to explain to everyone at work today?
I had to explain because I work with mostly people who are at least a few years, if not more years younger than me. So I think they missed the Gregorian chant.
It was a blip. Like if you weren't there, you would have missed it.
But it was weirdly popular and all over the place.
Was there any other bands in the genre, or was it just chant?
I don't know, but the funny thing is the chant was the name of the record, and the group was the Benedictine Monks of Santo Domingo dos Silos.
Today I have learned.
I've looked this up. Actually, a lot of the music they think was probably recorded in the 70s, and it was just like re-released over and over and over again until one time this label in the 90s, I believe called Angel Records, decided to sort of push it in marketing as here's a thing to relax you as modern life becomes more and more stressful. So they just managed to market it right in 1993, 94, and it just took off for whatever reason.
Was it relaxing though?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe, I guess. People relax differently back then, but that's maybe
the single.
No, that was the single. Maybe it's due to come back around now. It's been a few decades, right?
It's been a little bit, but that's besides the point. You know, again, welcome to the party people out there.
Yes,
perfectly
indeed.
Excellent. Our silly show,
episode 41. This
41.
Is middle-aged episodes we're hitting now. We're hitting our stride. But sorry, your shirt. I'm also thinking that you had explained it to people on work, which means you were on camera and people saw your shirt. Because I refused to turn my camera on a meeting because I was only wearing a t-shirt and I didn't want to have any explanations. But
see, I would have to have my camera off for every meeting every day of the week. So that's just they don't really care at my work. It doesn't matter. They care about the fiber of my being, not the fiber of my clothing.
Oh, got it. Cool. Well, chant away. I'm excited for today's episode, which we'll get into a bit. But before we do that, we wouldn't be doing anything right if we didn't start with our invention exchanges.
That's true. Let's do it.
Perfectly excellent.
Oh, I didn't move us to the other thing.
No, there we go. Hey, I'm huge. Awesome. So again, I'm going to credit you with this one. We've been talking a lot lately about out with the old and in with the important, right?
Very much.
So lately I've been, selling things off and reevaluating what I have behind me. And I started going down the path of maybe getting some things that were cool, that were important, that I would like to have. Not necessarily a collection, like I said, but a curation. And one of those rabbit holes I've gone down is just getting some of the video games that kind of made me, that inspired me, or the ones that were most impactful to me. And some have actually started to arrive. So yeah, and again, I'm going across from where I even started. So here are my roots right here. Before Nintendo entered the life. I was an Intellivision kid. I was not cool enough to have Atari or Coleco. My family had Intellivision. And this is a game, particular Astro Smash, that I just played on repeat, probably because it was real easy to pick up and play, especially on that crazy Intellivision controller. Surprisingly, these games are dirt cheap. Yeah. So even like complete in box, I guess nobody really wants them. But I thought this would be a cool way to start off, my little curated collection of games. And I'll just go through a few others that showed up that were of note. This is
before you get in there, I just wanted to say that we have a comment.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know what this comment is for. It was before you started your invention exchange. So, man is framed. Thank you for saying yes. I'm going to assume it was like you were being really enthusiastic about Gregorian chant music.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was all about. And who could not be enthusiastic about that? But yeah, real fast. So I don't know if I showed this one before. Did I? This was the Minish Cap.
I think you might have.
Okay, so we'll skip that. We'll go to Persona 4 Golden on the PS Vita. Insane game. Patapon on PSP. And then Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance. So
you're blowing through Invention Exchange. This could have been like 6 weeks worth of stuff.
Well, there's a lot more. So I'm getting to the point where I've about finished my curation, and then maybe we could do a 6-demon bag where I'll spend some time to go through those and talk about why they're there. But I'm really excited. But this one, I told you, this was a pricey one. Okay.
Yeah.
And the dude just sent it in a padded envelope. So I left him appropriate feedback to say, don't do that. Like, that's not cool. Like, get a box. But thankfully it arrived unharmed. So maybe he knows more than I do about these sorts of things. He has much more faith in the postal system. But yeah, that was my invention exchange. Again, a little haphazard today because it's like things are stacking up and I still need to clean out room for them. But it's the motivation is getting more and more as they arrive.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you got today?
Well, I have one of those toys that I really wanted when I was a kid, but I didn't have. So this is one of those, like, reach out and grab the thing that you always wanted as a kid, but you weren't able to get for whatever reason. And again, this is also now my philosophy of, hey, just because I bought this doesn't mean I need to collect this as a line. I can just have this one piece or maybe a couple pieces. So it's very fragile.
Yeah, that is not the Tim of yesteryear.
That is not the Tim of yesteryear. But I finally got myself a Devastator.
Oh.
Transformers, the Combiner. I wanted this so bad. The 6 different robots that formed into one giant one. That was one of the coolest gimmicks, I thought, of the 80s. It's one of the reasons why I love Voltron so much. I always wanted Devastator when I was a kid, and I never had one. So,
did you have any of those bits, or just no?
Well, that's the thing. I think I've told you a few times, and people out there, that I never really didn't have a time where I was interested in toys. I went right from playing with to collecting at like a very, very, very young age. So when I was in like 5th or 6th grade, some kid on the school bus had some Transformers, and I conned him out of them somehow.
Okay. So with your superior intellect. Yeah.
I guess I had, so in the 6th grade, not when I was a kid playing with them, but in the 6th grade when I was, more collecting them, I had all of them except for the head crane guy. Oof. So I could form like the lower torso of Devastator with 2 random arms hanging around. That was not fun, but I've never had the full one. And when this came in the mail, this was that was the first time I was ever able to assemble one and transform the hook guy.
That must have felt great. Like you just sit back and like,
yeah, no, but I always wanted this guy, and I'm really, really stoked to have him in. And does that mean I'm going to buy a whole ton of Transformers? No, maybe 1 or 2, maybe not. I'm just very happy to have Devastator.
Okay. Well, I will tell you that right foot is in our garage somewhere. I stumble upon him all the time, and I don't know where he came from because that was like later Transformers, wasn't it?
Not really. Maybe 85, 86 at most.
Okay. I think I had transformed out by then. I wasn't, but I was never really in deep. But awesome. Congratulations. That's like a lifetime. I feel like like we should have achievement unlocked or something. Finally assembled Devastator. 10
Yeah,
points.
I'm pretty stoked about that. But let's hit the button and let's start up the main topic for the evening.
Perfectly excellent.
The magazine issue. Very nice. So I think I texted you from Barnes and Noble, say, hey, we should do something about because I was amazed. I went to Barnes and Noble over the weekend, and I was actually absolutely amazed that they still have a pretty healthy like magazine section. Two big racks full of magazines, and it hit me that I have not had a current magazine in my possession for ages, and I started to get real nostalgic about how much I enjoyed carrying these around, and I said, hey, we should talk about these, and you're like, oh yeah, you were way into it, so I'm sure you have something to talk about.
I mean, magazines were so important, for most of my life, really, up until about probably like the last 15 years or so, when the internet really kind of started taking things over. But what was great about it is I just felt like there was a magazine for everything. Like any weirdo interest that you might have, there's probably a magazine for it. And I equated a lot to when I went to Tokyo like 10 years ago at this point now, is that we were wandering around Tokyo and we just noticed that like there was a store for pretty much any weird interest you could possibly have. Like by mistake, we stumbled into 3 different model train stores just walking around because it just felt like in Japan, they really encourage you to follow your passion. And I feel like that's what magazines were in like, the pre-2000s. Like they were really encouraging you to sort of find your people, really, to an extent.
Yeah. And like you said, there was literally a magazine for everything. I'm like, oh, here's a magazine for video cameras, regular cameras, like
coins.
Yeah, it was because you would browse the racks, and there was tons and tons of magazines.
Pewter Civil War Miniature Digest Monthly.
Mm-hmm. But it was also, like you said, it was also a time where you didn't have really instant access to everything all at once on the internet. At least that's where it started out for me. It was like this was how you got information, and even though it may have been outdated and old by the time it got to you, it was still brand new and exciting.
Yeah. And when this topic came up and we both started kind of brainstorming, one of the things I was really trying to think of is like, what was like the very first magazine I had any sort of access to? Not necessarily ones that like I wanted for myself, but just ones that were around. And I just kept going back to highlights.
Yeah, like you mentioned that.
In doctors' offices and dentist offices, going through Highlights magazine, reading Goofus and Gallant, which I loved that. There were like little mazes and puzzles and like little partial stories, but like those are the first magazines I remember. I don't really have a memory earlier than that of those.
Did they ever sell those outside of doctors' offices, or is that just who subscribed?
They did, because my younger brother got a Highlights subscription for like a year or two when we were kids. So definitely people did get them outside of that. But I think they also had them in school, like when the Scholastic Book Fair would come around and stuff like that. I remember seeing them then too. Like you obviously you engaged in Highlights when you were a kid.
I do. I remember. I don't remember it as much as what I would consider like my first real magazines, but I do recall that. Like I could see them vividly in my head, and I remember, picking up and thumbing through them. But really, not something I ever purchased. Like you said, it was kind of like I'm in a waiting room somewhere, and there's like National Geographic and Men's Journal, and then you're like, oh look, something for me that I could read.
Yeah, but Goofus murders indiscriminately, but Gallant always helps his mother clear the table after dinner.
Really? And that was in Highlights?
Similar things were in
that one. Cool.
Do you not remember Goofus and Gallant?
I do not, no.
All right, so Goofus and Gallant were these two characters where Goofus was the dumbass who always did the wrong thing, and Gallant was the one that was teaching you how you're supposed to behave. So like the real ones were like, after eating, Goofish just leaves the dinner table, whereas Gallant always helps his parents clear everything up and clean up. So it was trying to teach you to not be like Goofus. You should be like Gallant.
I'm sure Goofus had a lot more fun though.
He probably did. Did.
Yeah. So
the problem is he's in hell now.
Oh, is he? Wow, that's that did not work out in the end for Goofus.
But you said you had some pretty clear memories of your first magazines, which will start off our slideshow for the
That's
day.
A great place to start. Yeah. So again, like, we like we do when we prepare for some of these episodes, I really started to think about magazines and what got me started. And the Mad and Cracked were it for me. These were, I wouldn't say they were gateway drugs, but I don't know what it was about these. And I only really ever got these when we traveled as a family, but it became something that was synonymous with going to the airport. And then I would get a Mad magazine, or if they didn't have a Mad magazine or I already had it, I would begrudgingly get Cracked, which was okay. Like I liked it, but Mad was the one that I truly wanted. And I loved when they did the movie parodies like that, when it was something that I knew about. I was much more excited about the issue. There was probably tons of humor in these that was over my head at the time, but I still loved it. Did you ever pick these up at all? Were you into Mad?
No, not really at all. I was sort of aware of them, and I'm sure I thumbed through a couple of issues here and there, but it wasn't anything that I ever thought necessarily was funny or that grabbed me. If I saw something that had Star Wars on the cover and I opened it up and it wasn't actually Star Wars, it was something it was something that was making fun of Star Wars. I'm like, I don't want to make fun of Star Wars. I love Star Wars. Don't make fun of it.
It was having fun with it.
Well, I know that now. You also have to remember, just for everybody watching, Alan is much older than I am.
It's funny because
so much older than
when I started looking at these, I'm like, I was surprised at how old a lot of these issues were. Like, and even I like how Matt always says $1 cheap, and there you get like, I even still have some here.
Yeah.
I only dug out a few, but like I still have some issues. And this is 85. This one's old. This is 89. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know why I have that one, but like, yeah, our price $1.25, cheap.
Yeah. It was great. For the record, Alan's not that much older than me. He's only 2 years older than me. But what we've learned over the years is those 2 years can make a really big difference sometimes with this sort of thing,
especially in pop culture, right?
Yeah.
One thing I will say about Mad Magazine that has stuck with me my entire life is in the back cover was the Mad fold-in. Okay. Where it would tell a story as this picture, and what you do, you see in the corner, has instructions that you're supposed to fold one edge to the other, and it creates an entirely different picture. And that is something that I've never forgotten. Like I still think about to this day. Like sometimes when I make drawings for the kids, I'll make like a fold-in for them. That really like impacted me for as insignificant as it may be. That's something that always stuck with me. But yeah, like I love like amazing art. Mostly I got all the jokes from these things. And this is what I would do. I would sit on a flight and just read this cover to cover and then back again. Yeah. And again, anytime they made fun of stuff, I was all on board. Mad's gallery of lesser known Ninja Turtles. So yeah, this is where it all started for me. Mad, Cracked, satire, I guess. It's
where you got your wonderful sense of humor from. It started at an early age.
It might be. I'm sure like Al Jaffe and some of the other writers and artists that there may be some influence there, which is, I love these, but at the time I remember like comics were still kind of over my head. So it was weird to think back on that. But yeah. How about you?
Well, just before we move off of this, like I am also indirectly influenced by this stuff, just because like when I was younger, I was such a big Weird Al fan, and Weird Al has said over and over and over again how important Mad Magazine was to him as he was growing up. Yeah. So I am indirectly influenced by Mad due to my affinity for Weird Al.
Okay.
So for me, the first magazine that I ever had that was something that I wanted, that I asked to get in the store, and eventually I subscribed to, was the WWF magazine, because I just absolutely loved pro wrestling when I was a kid. I still do, for the most part, but I was watching wrestling like pretty young. Like when I was like 9 years old is I think kind of when I started watching pro wrestling. And I was digging through the covers of some issues, trying to figure out like where I started reading it. And I'm reasonably sure that the October of 1986 issue is the one that I remember, which is the one with Miss Elizabeth on the top left corner.
Of course, that's the one you remember.
Well, that's the ones before that. Like, I just don't remember those covers. The ones after it, I remember, like the Roddy Piper one, the Hogan and Andre one, the Randy Savage one. I had those. I remember those for sure. But the earliest one that I remember having is that Miss Elizabeth one. Yeah. So I subscribed to that for at least a couple of the years after that. But as I was digging through them, it was funny because I didn't really remember quite as many of the covers as I thought I would have.
Okay.
I haven't read these obviously in 40 years at this point, but they were interesting. They were very storyline focused. Whatever was going on TV, they were writing like fake articles and doing like interviews about that sort of thing.
Yeah. Can I just say that the cover of Roddy Piper, it looks like, do you remember they used to have those photo booths where you can get the picture of you put on a fake magazine?
Yeah.
It looks like some dude just rolled up and like they greased him up because of it's that plain background, right? And I guess that's the sign of the times, how
it's 1986.
Yeah, that's what graphic design, but that's what I thought of when I first saw it. It's like, oh, here, put you on the cover of a magazine, which if we had time and I could dig around for, I can find me on the cover of some random magazines from some family trips, but cool. Yeah. These, again, you had no way to follow the storyline outside of the matches at the time, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is this also led to me buying some other non-WWF magazines, because back in 1986, we were professional wrestling was kind of starting to move out of the territories era, where most markets kind of had their own kind of wrestling. So there was, New York based wrestling. There was Southern based wrestling. There was California based wrestling, Chicago, Minneapolis. There were all sorts of like little fiefdoms as opposed to like one or two really big companies. And growing up in New Jersey, like the WWF was the fiefdom that I watched. There were other wrestling magazines at the newsstand, and we used to go to this convenience store called the Ding Dong Dairy, which, again, best store name that I think I've ever heard in my entire life. But at the Ding Dong Dairy, they had like the giant row of magazines, and they sold some other wrestling magazines that weren't WWF. And I remember picking up a couple of Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines back then. And I remember these two specifically. When I was digging through covers, I'm like, oh, I absolutely had these too.
Yeah.
And they, in addition to covering the WWF, they covered some of the other territories with wrestlers that I didn't really know at the time. And the other thing that I really remember from them that I don't know why this stuck with me so much is there were constantly people in those magazines making fun of Hulk Hogan losing his hair. Which, as a kid, I don't think I ever noticed that Hulk Hogan was losing his hair until I started reading about it in these Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines.
Yeah, as an adult, losing my hair, I find that a low blow. That's tough. But these look way more sophisticated than the WWF magazines.
They were still, kayfabe. They still sort of towed the line of telling stories as opposed to really talking about what was actually going on, the real stuff like the newsletters were doing. So it's still sort of in the same wheelhouse. They were just a little more expansive in their coverage.
Cool.
And the people who wrote like opinion pieces did sort of just give their opinions, which is again where they would like make fun of Hulk Hogan and stuff like that.
Real nice. But it did come with a giant full color pinup of Baby Doll, which is
it did.
Okay.
I don't really remember that, but I don't know. But again, like you were saying, there wasn't really any other way to follow the pro wrestling stuff aside from the TV. And don't get me wrong, I like the TV, but the TV was only on a couple days a week. And what if I wanted to read something? What if I wanted to live pro wrestling more than that? Yeah. I don't know how that just happened.
What happened?
We move to the next slide, which is okay. We can move to the next slide. So we're moving into gaming.
Let's do it. Okay. Sorry, I might have done that. I was shrinking down the screen here. Yeah. So Mad Magazine, big deal for me traveling, but this Nintendo Power is something I associate much more with being home. You know, I was fortunate. I got my NES very early on in the game, back when Nintendo was still publishing the Nintendo Fun Club, I believe is what they called it. So I had the first couple issues of that, and that was kind of like the Nintendo zine. And then eventually that became Nintendo Power. And yeah, I think this is, out of all of the issues, this is still definitely the most iconic one, right? With the Zelda map and everything.
So here's the funny thing. Like I'll talk a little bit more about when I came in on Nintendo Power, but I back ordered this issue when I was a kid so that I could have like the Zelda maps. And when I was looking for pictures to put this slide together, I do not remember the fold out map being for the second quest of Zelda. I don't know if that's one of those like, you know, Mandela effect things that they talk about. I thought that was just the map for the first normal quest, like thinking back on reading it when I was a kid. But it's absolutely the map for the second quest, which
wow.
I don't remember that at all.
Nor do I. That's an interesting find. Wow. And I'm scanning it to see if anything. I guess I don't really know the big difference between the first quest and the second quest, but I'm assuming item locations were changed and wow.
Yeah, a whole bunch of like that kind of stuff. And like there was also a map like above it is the map of the first quest, which that's in there too. But my memory is not that at all. My memory is the big fold out was the Zelda map.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were two maps. There was an incomplete one that came with the game. Right?
Yeah, that had the white boxes on the corners.
Yeah, no, I am surprised as well. Interesting.
Yeah,
we've been living a lie.
But I came into Nintendo Power on issue number 4, the Zelda 2 issue. That was the first issue that I got. And I pretty much had a subscription for a few years after that. And like I said, I back ordered issue 1, but issues 2 and 3 were like I was always missing those. I didn't have those. But I subscribed to Nintendo Power long enough to have it go from like the spine to the staple, where it was just the fold instead of, if do you know what I'm talking about? It was like the bound like spine for the early issues. So I was with it long enough for there. Again, digging through covers, trying to figure out where I stopped. I believe I stopped on issue 31, which was December of 91, which was a Metroid cover. That's the last one that I remember, like when I look at the covers. I don't remember anything after that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get over this Ninja Gaiden cover where I don't know what they did in the art department with that. They just had someone obviously throw on a ninja mask, but yeah, there was a lot of great issues, great covers. I remember once, and I don't know why, I had to call Nintendo for something with my account, and they looked into my Nintendo Power account, and the dude on the phone was like, "Wow." He's like, "You've been like a subscriber forever." And it wasn't a complete subscription because there was an era that I skipped out on. But yeah, this was a constant for me for the longest time. And then they would always have some really cool subscription bonuses they would throw in. Like you get a CD of music from different games. I guess we'll get into it later. We'll talk more about what we're doing with these now. But yeah, I remember like anytime one of these showed up, that was the afternoon for me, just kind of sitting down, going through it, looking at any tips and tricks, seeing the games that were coming up, not realizing how heavily biased it all was. And even at the time, it's not like I would have even cared. Right.
Here's the other thing that's kind of funny, because I hit my microphone. I have it in a new position, so it's sort of in a different, I keep bumping into it by mistake, so apologies for anyone that I'm making noise for. I was really thinking about this. I believe that Nintendo Power is the first time I really read reviews
of anything.
For anything, because like wasn't reading like music magazines this early. I wasn't reading like movie review magazines before this, because we're starting up in like 89 was when I got this, so I'm like 12, 13 years old, and WWF magazine didn't have reviews of stuff in it. So I think this is the first time I was regularly getting a periodical where I would go and read reviews and go, oh, that sounds good. I think I might want that game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great, observation. You're probably right. I can't think of anything prior to this where I would have read something and made decisions based off of what I was reading. Again, very, very slanted opinions in this. I don't know that they ever said a game was bad. But you're right. You would read the ones that you would think to find that were more interesting.
But that was certainly a harbinger of things to come.
Definitely, and I'm sure we're going to get into that soon enough, right?
And making purchases based on those. But you had a whole other world of gaming magazines, though, that I know absolutely nothing about, other than Nintendo Power. And a couple of they had those weird not Nintendo Power magazines that were around at the same time. And the only thing I remember is you'd open them up and there would be mail order people trying to sell you quote unquote rare games like Tengen Tetris for $50 if you send a check to blah, 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 blah. So I sort of remember those. I don't remember the names of any of them. But this pile that you have here is ludicrous.
Yeah, this is, and you were with me at the time. Do you remember?
Oh, I do.
This
you
is
have them in a copy paper box, I believe.
I think there was a couple of them, maybe. Yeah. But it's not a complete, but it's a near complete. I think Nintendo Power had 285 issues total. And it ended in 2012. This is very, very close to all of them in there. And as a fool, I sold all these off. I traded them into a local game store in order to order and import Nintendo DS Lite. So they gave me about, just over $200 and something for all of these magazines. And really, really, I don't know. They were starting to smell anyway. So maybe it was a good thing to get rid of them. But yeah, you and I, we loaded all these up. I think we had sorted them in order. And yeah, like you said, there was a bunch more in here. So eventually Nintendo, I got out of, and I want to do an episode where we deep dive and talk about our relationships with Nintendo. So I won't get into it too much here, but obviously other systems entered in, like the Dreamcast, the Xbox, the PlayStation. And I started picking up those magazines as well, especially the ones that were coming with demo disc, which was great because then you could just pop that disc in and, get a preview of some games. And like you were saying with the reviews, you determine, hey, this is something I like, this is something I don't like, or, I want to play that. I subscribed to EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and that was another staple for me up until that print run ended. But this was everything I had at the time. And I'm gonna have to go zoom in on that photo. I don't know what that Nintendo letter in the bottom left-hand corner says, but that would be interesting to check out. And some
do you know when EGM started?
I don't. It ended in 2009 and then kind of had a resurgence for a couple of years after that. But no, I think it started way before I knew about it because old ones are really rough looking. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. But that was always a good one.
But you do regret selling the Nintendo Powers.
I would like to go back and I don't think I need all of them, but like you said, some of those covers, like the first issue, some of the Zelda covers, those might be neat to have. But
the Castlevania where he's holding the head of Dracula.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what I've done, how long ago was this, do you think, when all of this was sold?
Boy, probably every bit of 18 to 20 years ago.
Yeah, and this picture was taken at my parents' house. Like we had gone into the basement and dug this out and laid them all out. So yeah, I don't know that I would have wanted to lug these around for a couple more decades. Though yeah. It's just one of those things. It's like, man, I had all that. I would have liked to. I didn't need to sell all of it. Had I been smarter, I would have selectively saved some issues, but
yeah, I had, when I was a kid, I was very meticulous about my stuff. So when I had an issue, I read it and then I filed it. I kept every issue. It's not like I read them and threw them away. So I ended up with like just like a box of them. I had a box of WWF magazines. All of my Nintendo games, I had their boxes with the little styrofoam and the
Nice.
manual and all. Like I had all of that stuff. And then we went through a period when my mom and my stepdad got divorced, where we moved a lot, like a lot over a very short period of time. And during that period of time, like that stuff just sort of vanished. You know, I don't know exactly what happened to my WWF magazines. I don't know what happened to all those Nintendo boxes, or even the Nintendo games, or the Nintendo for that matter. Like all of that stuff just sort of vanished. And I get so irritated because my stuff was in such nice condition, and it just vanished over the years. Not that I think I would still have it now. I probably would have had to purge it at some point, because I had to do that. You remember, like, you know, again, like maybe 18, 20 years ago, I had to purge stuff at my grandparents' house. So I kind of had to get rid of everything. So I don't think it would have made it past there regardless, but it bugs me.
Any guess what you think could have happened to it? Like, hopefully it did get thrown out.
No, I'm positive that's what happened to it. I'm positive that just in one of the moves, it just got tossed or left behind or whatever. But like, I very, this is a weird memory, but I very vividly remember boxing up the WWF magazines and putting them in the attic in one of our houses. And I remember because we boxed them up in a empty case of Natural Light, which was my stepfather's beer of choice. So we had a lot of cardboard cases of Natural Light hanging around. So I put all of my WWF magazines in there. I taped it all shut, and we put them up in the attic. That was the last time I remember seeing those.
Hey, I like to think at somewhere, somehow, somebody found the box, like whether it was discarded or opened it up and appreciated just what was in there. Like it found a good home along the way.
That's a beautiful thought. There's no way that happened. I'm sure they just ended up in the garbage somewhere.
It's in some landfill somewhere.
But after WWF magazine, Nintendo Power is the one that I remember next. The one that I read regularly. And again, not only is it one that I subscribed to, it might have been the last magazine that I subscribed to.
Interesting.
So WWF and Nintendo Power are the only ones I remember having a subscription where they were actually delivered to my house. Pretty much everything else that we're going to talk about going forward is stuff that I would just buy at the store when I was out.
That's interesting, because there was a period of time, like I'm looking at, I don't know if it was Game Pro, but there was a period of time where I felt like there was just free subscriptions to magazines. Like you would just stumble upon them and you would get like, here's 2 years of subscription. It's like the 10 CDs for a penny kind of a deal.
Right.
Here's 2 years of subscriptions for $1. So I rode that for a while. With EGM, there was always some kind of deal that was coming out, because I had that subscription for a very, very long time.
Anyway, but yeah, aside from gaming, like the other thing that, you know, I don't know if it's chronologically next, but certainly the stuff that I spent the most money on magazines for next was definitely like pop culture stuff.
Okay.
And I know that you wanted to start with a couple, which could not be more dissimilar. But,
right. I until we started getting these images together, it didn't really dawn on me just how varied my tastes were at the time. But yeah, like I, in my like junior high and early high school, I got really into just horror movies. And I got into Fangoria magazine, which I think my parents thought I was a serial killer at that time. But you could get it at like the bookstore, right? It's not like I was going to like some seedy alley to get that. And then another one I did have a subscription to was the Disney magazine, which, it's a little bit of a contrast there.
Well, the funny thing is, and I said this to you when you sent me the picture of the Fangoria that you wanted to represent this, is I thanked you for not sending one of the really disgusting ones, because like when I was thumbing through Fangoria covers, like I was like, there's some, I don't like horror movies, but there was just some awful looking stuff going on the cover of that magazine. Yeah. And I also remember it at the newsstand when I was a kid, especially at one of the comic shops at the mall that we'll be talking about a little bit more in just a second here. But I mean, I remember Fangoria being a thing, but like I didn't like horror movies, so it's not something that ever interested me.
Yeah, there were some really graphic and gross covers. Yeah, I didn't pick this one purposely to be tame, but I was a big fan of Clive Barker at the time. It also did I ever make you watch Frankenhooker, which is the movie in the bottom right or bottom left there?
I know that movie, but not from you. I'm not sure I've ever seen it like all the way through, but I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah,
I remember trailers for it for whatever reason.
It is not good, but I used to love it at the time. I don't even think Nightbreed is good, but I also used to love that at the time. Like that's maybe one for a rewind. It's not super gory or graphic, but I don't think it's good at all. I think it's really boring, and I imagine at this point probably impossible to get through and watch. But yeah, it was really cool to get just again, there wasn't. Well, 1990s, I guess we're starting to get into web stuff, but for me at the time, there wasn't anywhere to go to read more about these movies. And I was really into like the special effects, like the behind the scenes and how things were done. And there were articles in Fangoria about, they would interview some of the artists and some of the makeup and effects artists. So that was really cool to read about. The Disney magazine, on the other hand, was all over the place. I was really only interested in the theme park part of it. But it wasn't just about theme parks. It was a total just Disney propaganda magazine.
It was like Nintendo Power.
Exactly, like Nintendo Power. Like our company is great. Everything we do is great. And here's all the great stuff that you're going to love and buy. Plus a letter from Michael Eisner, so everything you could possibly want at the time. I can't read the date on that one. Is it fall squiggly of something? But
Do you remember the little Disney magazine that they sold at the supermarket at the checkout stand? It was like the size of a TV guide. There was like a little Disney, like it was one for kids.
Okay.
I remember that. I feel like I got one of those with like Weird Al on the cover or something when I was a kid. I don't remember. I'll have to look that up.
Do they sell magazines in checkout aisles anymore? I don't know.
I don't know. You certainly don't get like the Bat Boy stuff anymore.
Wait, we didn't even. That was the Weekly World News. That's a newspaper, though. That wasn't a magazine.
Yeah, it doesn't totally count. But,
oh my gosh, that was amazing. Remember those Bat Boy escapes from cave and stuff?
Yeah, I absolutely loved reading the cover of those magazines or those periodicals when I was waiting in line with my mom at the supermarket.
Maybe we could do something about those in like Weird New Jersey all in one because. Good genre. But yeah, these were my high school formative years alongside EGM here. So how about you?
Well, a little earlier than that is kind of like the Star Wars stuff.
Yep.
And I never had Bantha tracks, but I know of it. And I had a friend in high school who was a couple years older than me. His name was Paul. He was the only other kid in my high school that liked Star Wars besides me. It was just the two of us. Star Wars didn't really it hadn't come back yet, at least not in any way that anyone cared about. But he let me borrow some of his Bantha tracks, and I remember reading them and just being like, this is really interesting because they did a lot of that, like you were talking about, the behind the scenes stuff, like what went into the design of creating Yoda and like that sort of thing. And then one thing that I definitely did get several of my own is like the Lucasfilm fan club. And I think the first time I got a Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine was probably at the Endor store at Disney World when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure they had it there. And I'm pretty sure I actually think I might have bought that issue there. But I definitely had a few of those. And that eventually morphed into the Star Wars Insider, which again, I was looking through the covers of those and I remember a handful of them, but that was a thing that I would sporadically pick up at like the comic shop or like the magazine store or like Barnes and Noble, not Barnes and Noble. What was the one that was in the mall? Borders sounds like a bookstore. Yeah. There's also some other one. What was the name of that other one? I don't remember. There were two bookstores in my mall. There was Borders and then there was another one that was a little weirder.
Walden Books?
Yes, that's it. Walden Books. Yes. Good job.
Thanks. I don't know where that came from, but
it's funny because you were talking about how you were at, Barnes and Noble and they had 2 racks full of magazines.
Yeah.
Like they had a whole section full of magazines back then where you probably had 12 racks of magazines. They made like a little aisle out of it.
Now that I remember that what is it on Clifton? Is it a Barnes and Noble or Borders? Yeah, where it was like a quarter of the store was magazines, where there was just like rows and rows of like seating to just sit and check it out. But that's funny. I the Bantha tracks that's crazy. I've never seen that before. So I don't even know, how did someone get that back then? How were you plugged in to even find those issues?
Yeah, I don't know. It was basically just like the first fan club. So I imagine there was probably stuff out there. I don't know. Again, I didn't subscribe to it, but I got to read a bunch of issues because my friend Paul had them, and I just wish I had stolen them.
Yeah, right. I mean,
he was a couple of years older than me, so he left high school and I never saw him again. So if I could have just milked that out until graduation, those would have been mine.
You needed to trade him something for those, but I don't know that I remember the fan club issues as much, but I definitely remember the Insider, and I still have my Star Wars Insider membership card. So I guess I was a subscriber, and I grabbed a different issue since you have been there, but I do still have these. You know, that was great. Again, these were really cool at the time. Is there a date on this one? This one's issue number 31 already. For some reason, I don't see a date though. But they were well on their way. But I'd be curious. I want to go back and check out that issue with Kenobi on it because of the holiday special. How did they ever mention that on the first episode or the first issue of Star Wars Insider? That seems crazy to me.
I don't know, but I definitely had this issue because I remember the Cult of Wedge. Like I very clearly remember that being like, oh yeah, people do. Wait, there are other people that like obscure characters because again, you got to remember, like, you know, my favorite character when I was a kid was Boba Fett, and while now I know that he was a very popular character and lots of people liked him, like most people didn't even know who he was when I was a kid, and finding out that there were more people out there that liked some of them, like that weren't big fans of Luke Skywalker, was just sort of, it was an interesting thing to read about.
Yeah. Boba Fett, I would say you definitely bump into other people. Wedge, yeah, not a lot of Wedge fans I ran into back in my youth, but these are great.
Yeah. And again, I loved these, but for me, as far as like pop culture stuff goes, it was really G-Fan that was the magazine that I was really, really drawn to, especially in high school. Okay. So at the Rockaway Mall in Rockaway, New Jersey, that was like the closest mall to where I grew up. And it was still like, 40 minutes away. But they had a comic shop there. And that comic shop, they also sold some toys. They also had, just like the other stuff that you would see in comic shops. They had a little magazine section. And I go in there one day, and they have this thing called G-Fan, and it's got Godzilla on it.
This is wild.
And again, this is, 93, 94, something like that. Oh, hang on. I wrote down what. Yeah, October 94 is again, looking at covers. That's as far back as I can go where I have a memory of it.
Okay.
So 1994, there's really not an internet. If there is an internet, I'm certainly not on it, and I don't know anything about it. But I walk into this comic shop, and there's something about Godzilla. And if you think there wasn't a whole lot of people to talk about Star Wars with in the late 80s and early 90s, there was no one to talk about Godzilla with. So I would religiously buy these when I went to the mall. I never subscribed, but we went to the mall pretty much every weekend when I was in high school because there was nothing else to do where I grew up. So we would go to the mall because that's where the movie theater was, and we'd hang out at the mall, and we'd go into Suncoast Motion Picture Company and the comic shop and the record stores, and then we go see a movie. That was pretty much every single weekend. So I bought a ton of issues of G-Fan at this store.
Are these official though? They look like zines almost.
And that's the thing. That's kind of the other point. That's why I gave them their own slide. This is absolutely the first zine I ever bought. Okay. I didn't know that's what it was at the time because it was a magazine that was at the bookstore or at the comic store. But yeah, this is very much just a zine. Like fans would draw these covers. They covered the Godzilla movies that were coming out in Japan in the 1990s, which was super interesting because those movies weren't released in America in really any capacity other than bootlegs. So I got to read about movies that like I couldn't see. It was like a way to kind of keep track of what was going on in the world of Godzilla. And it also was another one of those things that just sort of showed me, hey, there are other people out there that like this. It's not just me. Because let me tell you, as far as like liking Godzilla goes, I always felt like that was like an island that I was on. I never knew anyone who liked any Godzilla stuff. So finding a magazine dedicated to that with like lots of columns by people writing, and then there was like a back section, like a classifieds things where people were trading stuff, and
this is wild.
They eventually started like a fest in Chicago called G Fest, which still goes on to this day.
Oh, so not G Con, like on the one that's on the one issue?
I think it's G Fest. Maybe they changed the name.
Okay. Maybe there was a lot of G Cons, G Con, G Fest.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, it was just wild to just suddenly experience a fandom that I wanted to be part of, but I had no way to be part of until I found this magazine.
This is super cool. This is a deep cut, right? I don't have anything that quite compares on this level. You know, again, everything I was buying was big and glossy, Star Wars, Nintendo, you know, big movies, but amazing to find something like this. Yeah. And whatever happened to this?
It's still like, I don't really know, to be honest with you. Like I eventually, like that comic, like I stopped going to that mall as much. You know, I moved away from this part of New Jersey. I never really saw it again. And again, I wasn't really big on subscribing to magazines for whatever reason.
You didn't want to be on the grid, right? You didn't want anybody.
I guess I probably should have, but I really just didn't. So I don't know exactly what happened. If you go to their website, it's written in the present tense, as in they might still be releasing stuff, but I don't really know if that's the case or if it's just like a really old website that hasn't been updated in a billion years.
Is it under construction, the website?
Yeah, not quite. But so again, this isn't really chronologically, but kind of moving into a different section is I wanted to talk a little bit about like collecting magazines. And I'm not sure if you got into this stuff at all. And again, these aren't the sort of magazines that I read like religious. Like I didn't read these all the time, but I would absolutely pick up the occasional issue of some of this stuff.
No, yeah. Tell me more about these, because I didn't even know this stuff existed.
So the first one I remember when I was like a pretty young kid, we're talking like 86, is I remember Beckett Football Card Monthly. And they had like a baseball one and a basket, like any of the sports cards. And these were really more price guides than anything else. Because like I don't really remember reading the articles. I just remember getting them occasionally to see how much the football cards were worth, so I could figure out whether or not Bob's Collectibles was charging me a fair price for the ones that I was trying to find.
It's like the classic turn around and look at your phone on eBay, like when you're buying something at a toy show.
Yeah. So like you'd get these every once in a while to try to figure out whether or not it was worth, you know, like how much is that Eric Dickerson rookie card worth? Like, do I really want to spend $20 on it? Oh, I don't know. Beckett says it's only worth $17.50 in mint condition, so that might not be the best buy there.
And how did Beckett know?
I don't know how Beckett knew. Beckett just knew. It was just one of those things.
Right.
But it's just funny because, you know, I never read the articles, and I'm sure people could say that about other magazines.
But yeah.
So Action Figure News and Toy Review, of the two action figure magazines, that was the one that I read more often. And I kind of remember that one popping up in like, you know, 94, 95. That's when I started seeing it. And again, there was a price guide in the back, which was kind of cool. But they would also do features on old toy lines. Like, hey, look, here's, you know, Visionaries. Do you remember Visionaries? Here's all of the Visionaries toys that were released during that time. And it's like, oh, hey, like this cover thing, Star Wars is putting out some Micro Machines. Here's a sneak peek at some of the things that are coming out.
Yeah, this is, I like we said earlier, there was a magazine for everything. I never saw these, and I definitely would have been interested. Yeah, especially because I have that R2D2 upstairs.
Oh, well, there you go.
Micro Machine one.
Again, I just remember these at like the mall. Like I would pick these up at the mall. Like I didn't get Tomarts quite as often as I got Action Figure News and Toy Review. And I think that's mostly just because of availability, not necessarily because of a preference. But it was essentially the same thing where it was like, you know, there was price guides. And then, you know, the other thing that was neat about it, which I never really took advantage of, and looking back on it, I wish I did, is again, they sort of had like classifieds in the back and ads in the back. And like, hey, I have these Star Wars figures, like call me and I'll sell them to you. And
what
things
a
like
crazy
that.
idea nowadays, right? So
So yeah, so the collectible magazines were something I was really interested in because, again, from a super, super young age, I was really interested in collecting things. So that was just always something I liked.
I'm curious. We don't know. We don't have years on these, right? It just says August and.
I think the one in the middle is 94, 95, if I remember correctly.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I had my attention during this time was turned to something else, which I think we might get into in a little bit. But still, these are cool. I would have loved had I seen these. I probably definitely would have been into them. Maybe not the football card monthly, but definitely the.
But that was almost a decade before these other two. But that was the first one I remember as far as collecting magazines go. But I think you were referring to this.
Yes. So again. The early I guess all of the 90s, this is where my time and attention was spent, just skateboarding like nonstop. And that was my entire world, right? I would come home from school and I would just go out skateboarding all day. And even if I was just skating in the driveway, like my feet were glued to a skateboard. And sure enough, like everything else you said, like any interest there is a magazine that goes with that.
Or several.
Yeah, but Thrasher was the one. Like that was where it all started. I'm fairly certain I had a subscription to Thrasher as well. And it's something I made a note that I want to remark upon, that it weirds me out still to this day to see like Thrasher shirts are like a trendy shirt. Like somehow that just a shirt that says like Thrasher skateboard mag on it is like you'll see people wearing it that are likely not into skateboarding, but that's their big legacy that lives on, is everybody wants those Thrasher shirts. But man, I love these magazines. Like the ads were over the top. Transworld, I think, started to get more into like kind of the art and maybe a little more culture than just pure skateboarding. But Thrasher used to have something that I remember, again, another thing that stuck with me to this day, called scarfing material, where they would post like skateboard recipes. And the one that I still think of is you take celery and you fill, they say, I think in the recipe it says fill, it's the full pipe, just basically fill the celery with cream cheese and there's your snack. And I make that every now and then. So, but Big Brother is where it got weird.
I have no comment for that.
That's okay. This is one thing I remember is scarfing material. But I was going to say Big Brother kind of got weird. I think that was like the beginning of like the Jackass kind of type of skateboarding. And I don't know. I started to kind of fall off. I didn't have many issues of Big Brother. And it was always, I feel like there was little skateboarding in that and more shenanigans than anything else.
Yeah. So before like the next thing that we were going to talk about is we were going to talk about music magazines, and I figure we're probably going to split this up into two sections. There's like actual magazines, like glossy magazines, and then zines.
Yeah,
because I think we both have different relationships with both of those. Mm-hmm. So as far as an actual magazine goes, there's one that is like ultra important to me, and I have a slide for that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when it comes to like music magazines, did you ever read any of the like the Rolling Stones, the Spins, Alternative Press? Like, what was your relationship with those kind of magazines?
My relation, we weren't serious. We were seeing other people. Now, I remember I worked in a mall record store for a long time, so we had, along with our singles, we had our magazine rack. And I don't know if like if you've worked with magazines, maybe you have worked, what happens when the issues are old and the new issues come in? Do you know what you did back then?
You tear off the cover, right?
Yes. So we would tear off the covers of all the magazines, throw the magazines out, and then mail back the covers to the vendor. And I guess that's how, so you didn't get charged for those or whatever the financial thing worked out. And yeah, I would just sit and I would read the headless magazine. So I'd read Spin or Rolling Stone, or maybe I would take them home just because they were something to flip through. And I would say occasionally there was something I would be interested in like alternative press or whatever it was, and Spin. It wasn't always terrible, but I don't have any good memories of it. But I know I killed time with those magazines.
Yeah, again, this is me jumping around like chronologically. Like I never really read like Rolling Stone, Spin, or that sort of stuff until you know, kind of like more like the mid 90s when I actually started listening to more guitar focused rock music.
Sure.
So I don't think I ever bought an issue of the Rolling Stone, but like they were around. So
Yeah,
you'd
they were
kind of like
always
thumb
around.
through them sometimes. You know, I bought like 1 or 2 issues of Spin, like when like Beck was on the cover or something like that. You know, we're talking like 96, you know, that sort of time period. But I always just, by the time I got into, you know, punk and indie and, you know, rock and that kind of stuff, like these magazines were not cool. Like they were like the stuff that I was trying to get interested in wasn't really in those magazines. And that's, you know, when we're going to kind of get into like the zine thing. But before that, you know, the one that was like, that meant everything to me was The Source. And I'm going to try not to like monologue here for like 20 minutes, but like, I cannot possibly tell you how much this magazine meant to me when I discovered it. It's the most important one I ever read. I never subscribed to it for whatever reason. And I think part of that, when we were talking about this and we were talking about putting together an outline, you had asked me if there were any magazines that like I wanted, but my parents wouldn't get me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have one of that. Like that wasn't really a thing. But very much when I was a teenager and I started buying The Source, I did not want this magazine showing up in the mail because my mom did not like that I was listening to rap music, and she gave me a hard time about it.
Oh, got it.
So I never subscribed to it, but I would buy this at the mall all the time. And the first issue that I ever got was the one right in the center, the one with the Ghetto Boys on the cover, which was February 1992. Nice. That was the first issue of The Source that I ever bought, which is funny because I did not like the Ghetto Boys at all. But just the fact that I went into a store and I saw a magazine about rap music, about hip hop, I was stoked. I was like, woo, I am absolutely buying this. And I bought it consistently for years. The last one that I remember buying, again, looking through covers and whatnot, was the January 1994 issue with Das Effects on the cover. And I'm not really sure why that was the last issue that I bought back then, because, you know, while 1994 was the year that I kind of started getting a little disillusioned with hip hop, I'm surprised that the January issue would have been the last one that I bought. So I'm wondering if maybe I just had a harder time finding it. Like maybe like I remember I would buy it at the bookstore at the mall. So maybe they just didn't have it anymore. Or maybe they stopped carrying it or something like that. I don't really know, but like this was so important to me. Like reading the reviews, reading the interviews with people, looking at the advertisements and seeing what other albums were coming out. There was a lot of politics stuff involved, you know, when the LA riots happened after the Rodney King verdict, like they had a lot of people like on the ground interviewing members of the community, like showing me a different side of things that was very, very contradictory to what was being shown on TV and on the news and things like that. So this is one of those magazines that, in addition to like really being fundamental for me from like a music perspective, like it's also very fundamental for me from like a political perspective and like a beliefs system perspective. You know, hip hop is very important to me like that. Mm-hmm. And The Source is a really big reason, because there was very serious stuff in there. And again, this is another one of those things where I had a pile of issues and then they just sort of vanished.
Your mom caught onto your stash.
She must have. I was hiding them under the mattress. But this is one of those things, and I don't know when you want to talk about, you know, rebuying and collecting, but these are the ones that I am collecting and rebuying. So we can come back to this if you want.
Yeah, definitely. But I have to know the answer to the question: is Hammer too legit, or should he quit?
It was him and Vanilla Ice really got beat up in this magazine a lot, like a lot. So he should, according to them, he should quit.
Okay, well, and I think he did. So
I think he did too.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no. Do you have any questions, comments?
No, this is cool. I mean, again, I think aptly named, right? The Source, right? This was a source for you for like a culture beyond just the music. So really, And I know you've talked about this before, so we'll get back into this a little bit, but unfortunately, I think I beheaded a lot of these magazines too when we would throw them out at the end of the month. So
well, that's really depressing because we'll talk about it more in a minute. They're expensive.
Yeah, and I'm sure like the Nintendo Powers, but I imagine these are probably way more expensive than those Nintendo Power issues.
Yeah,
so.
we'll get to that, but we got a few more slides, so let's.
Oh, do we? Okay, what else is next?
Well, because again, I think this is probably going to be another big one.
Oh yeah. So this is interesting. Like I'm thinking about it from a new perspective now, because you talked about the source and you talked about how there was reviews, but there was a lot more articles and there was a lot of stuff that kind of helped inform you on the world and also shape the person that you kind of became. I can't really credit these magazines that much, right? Like especially Maximum Rock and Roll. I'm kind of like a fake punk, I guess. I would get that and I would just go, all I read were the reviews. I never read the articles. I never really spent much time because it never felt like really, it wasn't my fight, I guess. I don't know. It's just maybe lame to admit, but I was purely there. Like I was so eager for new music at the time. And there was very limited ways. If you didn't hear from it word of mouth, you really didn't hear from it at all, right? Like there was no way to find out new bands. So I would go through the reviews, and there was a specific reviewer at the time, Ray Lujan, who I would always look for his reviews. And as wrong as they always were, he always would review the bands and the types of music that I would like. So, yeah, Maximum Rock and Roll was purely for the reviews, but Punk Planet was way more, that felt much more my speed. There was interviews with bands that I was interested in. There was more articles that I was interested in. They ditched their newspaper type cover eventually and went to like a proper kind of magazine-ish. I feel like that one was pretty short-lived, especially compared to Maximum Rock and Roll.
Well, compared to Maximum Rock and Roll, yeah, but it was around for a while.
Yeah.
Maximum Rock and Roll is one of those things that's kind of funny for me because like I had this guy, his name was Dave. You know him at the radio station. He was Death Row. Do you remember that guy?
No, that's too far gone in my brain. But sure.
But he was at the radio station. But in high school, he loved this, and he loved George Tabb. Like he thought the George Tabb columns in Maximum Rock and Roll were the funniest things in the entire world. So my first exposure to Maximum Rock and Roll was from Dave. And again, when I was just starting to get into punk rock, I borrowed some issues from him or whatever, and I was reading through it. And right away, I was just like, this is way too punk for me. Like I'm not this. Like whatever's going on here, I don't want to say like it seemed scary because that sounds dumb, but it was intimidating. It was just like, oh, I am not going to pass these purity tests that they're laying out for me.
100%. Yeah, this was real. Like that, I felt like that was real punk rock, and I was like, there was angst. I maybe wasn't so angsty or wasn't angsty enough at the time.
Yeah, but like you, Punk Planet was the one that I was more interested in. And while they definitely, I know that they focused on a lot of the music that you and I both liked, they also had a real strong Pacific Northwest lean. So again, like the Kill Rock Stars, K, like that kind of stuff, like they covered that really big. So when I was first starting to get into indie stuff, that was kind of where I was gravitating. So Punk Planet really kind of served that. And when I was cleaning out my my attic, I found a couple of, I think like 96 issues of this. And I sent them to Scott, the guy who came on for the McDonald's episode, because he's trying to build a collection of all the old Punk Planets. Awesome. So the ones I had were earlier than the ones he had. So I sent him those.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad your experience was kind of like mine. Like, right. Like Punk Planet, you would read cover to cover. Maximum Rock and Roll, you read the reviews, and you would send $4 in an envelope randomly and maybe get a record in the mail.
Yeah.
And then, but did you read the Big Takeover at all?
I did not.
Okay.
I was aware of it. I'm sure I read it a couple of times, but probably not until I was out of college. So probably not until like the early 2000s was when I first really started seeing it at all. Yeah. And the main thing that I know about the Big Takeover more than anything is that Jack Rabbit is probably like the United States foremost pusher of Leatherface onto the public. It's like,
great.
especially back then. That's really all I know about it, but I never really read it often, and I certainly didn't read it in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal with it was. It came out like it wasn't a monthly thing, or at least not one that I can recall. I think it came out like once or twice a year, and I just remember it being gigantic. It was like a book, but it was amazing. It had, again, it was a lot more encompassing than Punk Planet was. There'd be a lot more, like a broader spectrum of music there, but there was still tons of bands that I was interested in. And it was another one you would just kind of sit and read cover to cover, unless there was an interview with somebody you didn't really care about, you would skip that and move on. But it was a hefty magazine. And then, yeah, also the reviews, you'd go read Jack's reviews of everything. Cause I felt like he had, I had similar tastes, or he had similar tastes that so if he liked something, there was a chance I was going to like it. And I'm sure I've got a few issues of this. It was very slick. Like, look at it compared to these other ones with the barcode there, the giant logo. It was a very slick and well done magazine.
Yeah. And then the last one I have on this list, which I don't know if you know it at all, it's a zine called Razor Cake. Mm-hmm. And it's still going. The issue that's on the cover there with John Reese, that came out last month.
Well, that's crazy.
It tends to focus on the kind of punk rock that I like the most, very much like the Dillinger 4 school of punk rock is kind of like where they lean more than anything else. Cool. And I remember this is actually the last magazine that I subscribed to, not Nintendo Power. I did subscribe to this for a couple of years ago, but I let my subscription lapse because like this is not punk rock at all. I'm not being punk rock here. I just want a digital version of this. I don't need the clutter of magazines. I feel guilty throwing them away. Like it makes me upset to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't have anyone to give them to that would want to read them or anything like that. I just don't need the clutter of zines all over the place. And then this is another one, and I know that you can relate to this, is the older I get, the harder they are for me to actually even read.
That's 100% for me. Like I need to be able to.
I need the zoom. Like I need the zoom to be able to see things. So if Razor Cake did a PDF subscription, I would subscribe. I would get this every single month. But I can't. I don't have the space or the eye strain left in me to subscribe to this regularly. Yeah. So I did buy the one with John Reese on the cover, which was part 1 of an interview with him. Part 2 came out this month. I did buy that individual issue as well. So I'll have the 2 John Reese interview.
What does an issue of Razor Cake go for these days?
Shipped like $5.50. Like it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous.
Bad, though. If you look at the prices of magazines and stores, they're like $14 an issue. It's insane.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think we're probably going to like push through this a little faster than is appropriate, but like, I don't think you can really undersell, or you can't oversell how important these kind of things were to us, especially in the 90s, especially pre-internet, to find stuff, and again, I'll credit you with a lot of heavy lifting for this, because you would find stuff and then bring it into the record store you worked at, where like the schlubs like me would get to buy it because you could go, oh, hey, that thing over there, that thing's awesome. Yeah. And a lot of that just stems from being able to like read these reviews and stuff like that. So these were so important back then.
They were lifelines, right? You were not plugged into anything that was outside of your immediate radius at the time. So this was definitely a great way to do it. And yeah, I think I even went through like Maximum Rock and Roll with like a highlighter on the newspaper thing, like, oh, this one, and then just, reaching out to random people just to try to buy records and find music. There was, kids got it so easy these days with the internet.
I know. It's good and also awful.
Yeah.
So we got one more slide because we've obviously saved the best for last.
Did we? You actually made this one. All right. Did you?
So Weird New Jersey is the important one.
Yeah. Weird New Jersey is again, I didn't know if that was a magazine or a zine, but this was something that's been kicking around in our lovely state of New Jersey for ages.
Yeah.
And I remembered, I probably went with you when they did and I'm sure they've done it more, but the guys behind Weird New Jersey did like a presentation at Barnes and Noble, the same Barnes and Noble I was just at recently that made me think of this. I remember going there and them talking about all the crazy things in our state. And I used to love when these would come out and we would go on road trips to try to find the stuff. There would be no directions to where these things were.
No,
so
you just randomly end up driving down Clinton Road at 2 o'clock in the morning for something weird to happen.
Yeah, but oh man. And then they came out with like a compendium. I think they've spread into other states too. I guess they got all the weirdness out of New Jersey, but
oh, there's always going to be weirdness in New Jersey. Yeah. And this is one of those ones, like, I know Weird New Jersey from you. You were the person who I knew.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't know Weird New Jersey until you started getting them. But man, these magazines were so rad. So many cool, weird stories. Yep. Because New Jersey is just, it's an odd place. Like, it's just, it is an odd place to grow up. And it was really cool to just kind of have sort of like a voice saying like, no, you're not crazy. It's actually just very odd here.
And I remember Weird New Jersey was another one that was like a pamphlet. It was like basically pieces of paper photocopied and stapled together. So when it actually became a proper magazine, it was a big deal. Yeah. And this is we used to get this at the record store, and I would just love to just sit there and read through them. Great times, good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, before you talk about Sky Mall, I have to tell, like, the best thing about Sky Mall, and I will always remember this, and you've probably even heard me just say it randomly as like an exclamatory phrase. So Sky Mall would sell like just weird stuff,
insanely bizarre, weird stuff,
nonsense. Yeah. They had this wine rack, and this wine rack was about like a 4 foot tall French guy made out of metal, and in his legs had holes that you would put wine in. And the big caption over this man-shaped wine holder was "Sacre Bleu, what a wine rack."
and that's oh man.
That is one of my favorite, like, I will remember the image of that. "Sacre Bleu, what a wine rack." And sometimes when I'm really excited about something, I still say that. And no one knows what I'm talking about, but
I would not have gotten it. So I appreciate the explanation, but I'm not at all surprised that it came from Sky Mall, because it was the most bizarre assortment of random merchandise. Like the full-size hockey rink you can get for like your lawn was one that I remember. It was the most bizarre things. But
it was the first time I ever saw the toaster that you could put hot dogs in.
Yes. God, I don't know how they source this stuff, but the coolest thing about Sky Mall is that in flight, if you wanted to order anything, it was a free call from the seatback phone. So there was many times where I would just, not many times, maybe once or twice when I was traveling with someone as a goof, we would just call Sky Mall just to talk to someone from an airplane. And I remember asking them about something and like, I don't remember. Oh, what's the shipping on this? And then, okay, thank you. And like, because it was just amazing at the time to think that you can make a phone call without having to use your credit card. And ridiculous. I appreciate you including that as a goof, because that was very silly.
That was good stuff. But, you know, as we're wrapping up, you know, one of the things that we were talking about, since this show does tend to lean on the collecting side of things, you were asking me about, you know, are there old magazines that I want to collect? Are there old magazines that I want to rebuy? And like, are there ones that you want to rebuy? Like, do you get the itch to get those Nintendo Powers again?
I do get the itch. Like I said, I would love to have some of those issues, but there are really cool preservationists online that are scanning all of these magazines and making them available for download. So that is definitely scratching the itch for me as far as collecting, because I'm enjoying reading them. So I've been going on and I've just been downloading like years and years worth of different types of magazines. I wish I had the website in mind because I would share it now, but there's like a gaming, I'm sure if you just Google for like vintage gaming magazines, you'll find this website that has Nintendo Power EGM. It has so many, and it's been so cool to download those and just sit on an iPad and appreciate the ads, appreciate just how many ads each issue had, which I guess I didn't really notice at the time. But that's been cool. I may be tempted to buy 1 or 2 issues, but they're really expensive now. Like, again, they're $40-$50 an issue versus $200 for that whole thing I just sold, or that thing I sold way back when.
Yeah, $40-$50 is okay. So, I was talking about before about how important, the source is to me. And really that era of hip hop is super, super important to me. Like, I started listening to it in 1990. And by like the end of 1994 is kind of when it's like, all right, this is kind of moving into a direction that I don't like as much. But those years, those years are really, really big. And I was reading the source for a lot of that. And I'm just like, I really want these again. One day I was just kind of going through eBay, and suddenly I saw like a lot of about like 11 of them for, I don't remember how much it was. It was like, I don't know, maybe like $100 for, like 10 magazines.
Cheaper than they were probably when they were new, right?
They were a little more than that, but it was just like, oh, all right. And then it had just popped up, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy it now. I'll just get those. It's got a couple of them that I remember. And I'm just like, and then they came in, and I was like, oh man.
No, it awakened something.
Oh, I wanted to have, so basically the source started in 1988. It had 2 issues in 1988, which were essentially just like photocopied, like 1 or 2 page, like pamphlets, really more than anything else. In 1989, it started being an actual magazine, where the first 3 issues were kind of like zines with like black and white covers. And then starting with, I guess, technically the 6th issue, but the 4th issue of 1989, they had full color covers, and then it kind of just turned into like a bigger, glossier magazine as it went forward. So I'm not gonna, the 1988 ones, like that's ridiculous. But I really wanted to get 1989 to 1994, the complete set. So I've done a pretty good job so far. So I made this little thing. So this is 1991. So I've been rebuying these, and I've got, this is all of my 1991.
Wow, look at this
of the source. So,
oh my gosh,
all good,
all good. I like the way
they're on backs.
Yes, they're all backs. Okay, this is cool. I like this setup. So that's a great way to store them and keep them.
I made the little cover so I can see what ones are in them. So I have been able to acquire all of the issues from 1989, starting with the full color cover ones, to the end of 1994. So those 3 black and white colored covers, those first 3 issues of 1989, I ain't never getting those.
Oh no.
2 of them have sold recently on eBay. One of them, the De La Soul cover, sold for $2,000.
Wow.
For that magazine. The other one, which was the California rap issue with NWA on the cover of it, that sold for $3,000 for a single issue of a magazine. I have spent a lot of money on these magazines. I have paid a lot of money for some single issues. The most I have paid for an issue was $300.
Okay.
Which is a lot of money for a magazine. A lot of money for a magazine. But those 1989 color covers that I have, like the Big Daddy Kane one, just sold for $950.
It's crazy.
I did not pay $950 for that issue. But these are nuts. And like the other thing is, for the most part, they're not online.
Yeah, like, that's what I was going to ask. Like, but I guess if you're paying $3,000 for an episode, you're not scanning it, right? Or for an issue. Or
are you? Because I've scanned all of everyone that because I can't read them because they're so small. And I don't want to be like futzing around with them too much.
Yeah.
So except for the first 3 issues of 1989, I got those kind of recently. So I have not scanned those 3 yet. But all of the rest of these, I scanned them all about a year ago. So they're all on my iPad now, and I've been like
That's
going through
amazing.
them and rereading all of them all over again. So it's really, I love having these. Like, they're like a piece of history, and I keep telling my wife, if something happens to me, they're worth a
yeah, don't throw them out, right?
Yeah. Get your money's worth out of these stupid magazines. They're worth way too much money, but they're just such a time capsule of like such an important time in that kind of music that it may seem like a lot of money, but it's worth it to me. Now, granted, I would never in a million years pay $3,000 for a single issue of a magazine. That would never, ever, ever happen. But hey, if I saw it up for $300, I'd grab it.
All right. Well, good luck in your quest there. I hope that turns out. That's awesome that you're scanning them, because again, having them all on an iPad or being able to just flip through them is amazing, and especially not damaging them without,
and being able to zoom, because like, again, I would not be able to read some of these because like, you know, the like the 90s magazine style where suddenly like a little thing would appear in a corner with a like black on like a dark red color or something like that. Like, I'm just like, wait, I can't read that. But if I blow it up and adjust the brightness, you know, then I can read it a little bit better.
Awesome. Hey, I should add, I mentioned that's amazing. Like, you're gonna have to release those scans one day when, you know, upon your departure from this world, free them. Yeah. But I did want to say, I mentioned that there's websites for the gaming magazines, but I should say there was also a Kickstarter for EGM that I backed that did that has all of the magazines digitally, as well as a compendium talking about it. So I don't know if you could still support it, but it's out there. And it was like, I'm sure if there was a source one, you would jump on that right away. Like,
yeah, yes and no. If I could have just bought all of these digitally, I probably would have. I probably wouldn't have gone out and rebought all of these. As much as I do like collecting, like, again, it's been expensive to put these together. Like, it's been really, really expensive. And I bought them really just because I wanted to read them again more than anything else. But I would not be interested in a compendium of them that didn't have the ads.
Oh, yeah. And this compendium does. It's just scans of the magazines. So.
Okay, yeah, then that is something I would be interested in, because I know a lot of times when people put out stuff like that, the ads get taken out. And like, to me, that is at least 30% of my interest in them, is reading those ads. Like, those ads, the ads for cross color stuff in here, are just wonderful to revisit.
The EGM Kickstarter has the magazines, and the compendium is something separate, which has like behind the scenes articles about it. I think they interviewed a lot of the former editors and whatnot. So I haven't gotten that yet. I've just been reading the old magazines. But awesome. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But again, I'm not about to start going to buy Nintendo Powers again. Like, I don't need to collect magazines in general. I don't want old Star Wars Insiders. I don't need the WWF magazines. But the source, I needed those. I had to read those again.
Well, kudos on that. That is, and you've got them stored well. Just make a video to remind, you know, like, okay, if I'm no longer here, this is what's important.
Yeah, this is the stuff that you have to sell top dollar for.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, well, I think that's going to like wrap us up for today.
Yeah.
It was a lovely conversation. I enjoyed this immensely.
Thanks for throwing in the Sky Mall. That was good. I appreciated that one.
So next week, I will not be available on Thursday. I have a conflict, but we're talking about potentially doing a Tuesday episode instead next week, which I believe is going to be one of our world famous 6 Demon Bag episodes, where we're going to do just like a couple of little segments about some things. I have some thoughts about the Masters of the Universe trailer. I want to talk about that. There's some G.I. Joe stuff going on this week. So we'll do a couple like little topics next time.
I think that's perfect. All right, cool. Well, good chat. This is I want to go dive into some periodicals now.
That sounds lovely. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful time, and get your reading glasses out.
Definitely. See you guys.
Perfectly excellent.